Hello and welcome to Calls. This is the 2022 Byron Nelson Data Dive Show. We have a lot to get into, especially since I had a pretty short show last night. We have some more information regarding the tournament, and I promised you all a longer show and a deeper dive into the data. So let's get right into it. All statistics provided tonight and every night are from FantasyNational.com. It is simply the best tool out there. Go check them out. It's going to make you a much better gambler, a much smarter DFS player. It is well worth the investment. You're not going to regret going to check out FantasyNational.com. In the description of all three streaming service videos, there are links to my social media. This is where I place tidbits of information like I did on Max Homa last week. I posed a couple of questions or kind of some fun facts in the form of a question today around last year's champion, KH Lee, for the Byron Nelson. It's also where I post my betting cards for the upcoming tournament. And for Fridays and Saturdays for my baseball content, I'll be throwing out some different looks at some players or maybe some ballpark statistics, stuff like that. So if you want to be in the loop for some of the research that I do, go give me a follow at the links in the descriptions. And finally, we are live. Chat is open. I want to hear from you all. Have you all made any wagers yet for the Byron Nelson? Are you all keying in on any players or statistics specifically? Do you think there are going to be any storylines to follow? Things like that. So jump in chat. Let's have a good show. I'm here for any questions that you all have. But let's get right into it. Let's dig into the data for the 2022 Byron Nelson. And we come over here first to the GCSAA tournament fact sheet, which was not out last night. But now that it is, we can cover that thoroughly and see if anything has changed from last year. So let me bring up chat. And again, hopefully you all will join me in here. We are in McKinney, Texas at TPC Craig Ranch. Last year was the first year that TPC Craig Ranch was used on the PGA Tour. It was a birdie fest. No other way around it. The winning score was minus 25. The cut line was -5. It was really, really darn easy. You can see here it is a Tom Weiskopf design, so not a lot of architect stuff we can look at in Fantasy National, but not a lot has changed otherwise. It is a par 72 that measures just under 7,500 yards. The stimp is listed as the same as it was for last year's GCSAA, and according to Fantasy National, the greens were rated out as average. We are on bent grass greens with Zoysia, on the fairways and Bermuda as the rough. This answers a couple of questions that we kind of pondered last night. The greens are bigger than the average tour green size. Average tour green size is about 6,000 square feet. These are just under 6,800, so a bit larger. Quite a bit of rough around TPC Craig Ranch. Now there are only 4 water hazards, but it says that 13 holes have water that come into play. I'm going to tell you right now that it would be 13 holes with water in play for me, but for the pros, not 13. Maybe about 5 or 6, but not 13. And I don't see anything specifically listing any renovations to the course. So I am still of the belief that this is going to be a birdie fest. Birdies and eagles. I don't see anything changing as far as difficulty of course. I don't know of the weather conditions, but this week looks to be really nice, hot, but really nice. Maybe a little bit of wind picking up on the weekend, but nothing that would constitute a heavy focus of a PM AM split or whatnot. But we'll take a look at Windfinder Wednesday night in the DFS Tactics show just to make sure the forecast hasn't changed or anything. I like to do that as close to the start of the tournament as I can to get the most accurate information that I can get whenever, because weather's always accurate. But that is the GCSAA tournament fact sheet. Again, we are on bent grass. Fantasy National lists it at average, so that's all I can go by, especially with only 1 year of data. Par 72, long the par 72. Bigger greens than the average tour event. A little bit of water, a lot of rough, but it's not very penalizing. So that is a look at the tournament fact sheet for the AT&T Byron Nelson. Let's go ahead and move straight into Fantasy National. And I have already preset this at a custom date range from the start of this calendar year. And I've got it on all rounds just to make sure we have generally enough data just to get a comprehensive view on how everyone has played. Yes, I know that the DraftKings pricing is out. I always like to use just the field listing, and then I switch over to the DraftKings pricing for the DFS Tactics show. And the reason I mention that, I just happened to see out of the corner of my eye, Rasmus Højgaard, he's withdrawn. There have been a few withdrawals. Hopefully I'll remember them as we go through the show. I know Nick Hardy is one, Doug Gim is another. But if you're in chat and you know of players that have withdrawn, by all means, jump in there, let the community know, and refresh my memory. I know 3 or 4 of them off the top of my head, but we're not going to do a whole lot of review because we have quite a bit new stuff to look at. So instead of going through just a pure performance, let's go ahead and start splitting this data out. We did look at performance on long courses last night, so let's just go ahead and do a quick recap of that. It is only 19 rounds maximum by Siwoo, so most players have anywhere between, we'll say, 10 and 14 rounds. I might expand that out to the start of the PGA Tour season for the mixed condition model. You know what? In fact, let's just go ahead and do that. So I'm going to set this at September, I believe it was the 13th for the Fortinet. And we'll see how many rounds that increases. It doesn't look like many, to be honest. But we'll keep it at this. So your top performers since the start of this PGA Tour season on long courses are Scotty Scheffler, Will Zalatoris, Johnny Vegas, Ryan Brim, Nate Lashley, Taylor Gooch, Mito Pereira, Matthias Schwab, Bo Hostler, and Dustin Johnson. Again, I skipped over Højgaard because he has withdrawn. I know that for a fact. So there's a look at your top performers on long courses. Something we did not cover last night, and I realized it earlier today. Let's take a look at easy relative to par. And again, this is going to be since the start of the PGA Tour season. Plenty of rounds here. You got 27. Most guys have at least 20. So your top performers on easy rounds relative to par. Those players are Taylor Gooch, Lonto Griffin, Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts, Sam Burns, Seamus Power, Aaron Wise, Justin Thomas, Mark Leishman, Maverick McNeely, and Mac Hughes. So already a little bit of overlap here. Thomas wasn't listed in the top 10 for long courses. He was just right outside the top 10. I believe Taylor Gooch was in there. I believe Lonto Griffin was in there. Hey, P, thanks for jumping in chat. By all means, appreciate you listening in the car. Don't chat and drive, as they say, I guess. I don't know. But I appreciate you listening in. Let's see. So there's a look at the easy course metrics or your top performers on easy courses. I'm going to go ahead and remove that. We saw last night in the course breakdown, DJ Marriage Narrative, Mr. Awaken. Hey, how you doing? Thanks for the subscribe. Welcome to chat. Thanks for tuning in. You're going with the DJ marriage narrative. Okay. Maybe. I can see it. Are you saying that's a good thing or a bad thing? Is he a little hungover from the wedding, or is he fired up now with Polina? I don't know. But welcome to the chat. I appreciate you jumping in there. Let's see. I'm going to narrow this back into the start of this calendar year, and something that we did look at last night, and I'll show you just very quickly in the course breakdown here. The average stroke gain by shot type, and then this was KH Lee last year. He had almost two, or not almost. He was above 2 strokes gained on approach per round last year. Putting was 1.2, and off the tee and around the green were just negligent. Really, it didn't matter. And as you went down in the leaderboard, the approach kind of lessened. So we really started at the top 10. So top 10, it was almost one shot or 1 stroke gained per round on strokes gained approach for the top 10 players. Putting was pretty close. And then as you went up the leaderboard, top 5's approach really started to take off, distance itself from putting a little bit, and then KH Lee 2, almost a full shot more than the putting. So that's why I have such a heavy emphasis on strokes gained approach. Plus, it is the statistic that I prefer. I believe it is the most indicative of long-term success on the PGA Tour, strokes gained approach. So your top performers in strokes gained approach, I'm just checking to make sure I don't have any other filters. So your top strokes gained approach players since the start of the calendar year, not PGA Tour season, the calendar year. Kind of wanted to bring that in a little bit. Top players in strokes gained approach: Justin Thomas, Will Zalatoris, Adam Hadwin, Kurt Kitayama, Johnny Vegas, Luke Donald, Hideki, Patton Desire, Austin Smotherman, and Lonto Griffin. I don't know if you were here awakened for a little bit of the blurb during the GCSAA tournament fact sheet and the beginning of the Fantasy National portion. I know of a few players that have withdrawn. I don't remember all of them off the top of my head. I know Nick Hardy, Rasmus Højgaard, Doug Gim. I believe there's a couple more. So if you know them, by all means put them in chat, because I know I'm forgetting some of them. I believe 5 or 6 have already withdrawn. But that is a look at the strokes gained approach since the start of the tour, since the start of the calendar year. One of the other things we can look at, although I don't know how much emphasis I'm going to put into it in the mixed condition model, is bent green putting. So because we've only had 2 tournaments on bent greens so far this calendar year, the Masters, and then last week the Wells Fargo, and the Masters putting statistics are proprietary, I have to expand this all the way out to a full calendar year. So we're going to go all the way back to May. Let's just go back May the 10th. So 364 days. That is 38 rounds from Patton Desire. Sure, I'll just bring it down to a nice even 36 for Fantasy National. So in the last 36 rounds or past calendar year, your top performers on bent greens, no speed filter. Again, sorry, there it is. Again, the GCSAA tournament fact sheet listed it at 11.5, which is the same as it was listed for last year, and Fantasy National put it at average speed. If we get a second straight year of average speed greens, then I would feel comfortable putting average speed on here. But with only 1 year, I'm just going to keep it at bent, especially since we know we're definitely on bent. So your top bent green performers in the past calendar year: Alex Norton, Brant Snedeker, Seamus Power, Bo Hostler, Mac Hughes, Hankley Biota, Adam Schenk, Jim Herman, Jason Kokrak, and Keith Mitchell. Some of these guys, no real surprise. Seamus Power, the winner at the Barbasol last year, was on bent. Adam Schenk, a fantastic performance this past week at the Wells Fargo. I didn't realize he had top 10'd. Let's see. Mac Hughes, generally a good putter. Hank Lebioda, the same. Bo Hostler, always a good putter. Alex Noren is very good on bent. So a lot of this just makes quite a bit of sense here. So good stuff here. I don't recall any of these guys popping on the other metrics, say easy, long, approach, anything like that. I don't remember these guys being there. So kind of new names here for putting. Let's see. Otherwise, not sure how much more we can slice and dice these, what I kind of call umbrella stats, the off the tee, approach, around the green, and putting. Let's see. Rough length, we've done long. Again, Tom Weiskopf design, so nothing to do here with the architect. I will look at wind tomorrow, but what I've seen, it looks fairly calm Thursday and Friday, and then picks up on the weekend. So let's go ahead and really start digging into this. So I'm going to go tab by tab here. We're going to go birdies and bogeys. And the first thing I'm going to look at is, let's see, make sure I'm on the right tab here. So we mentioned how this is such an easy course, or it was last year. The cut line was -5, winning score was -25, and you can see that represented here. KH Lee, 10.5 in birdies gained. He wasn't even the top. Scott Stallings, 12.5, 6.5, 6.5, 8.5. And it's important to avoid the bogeys, sure, but the top numbers here, 12.5, 10.5, 8.5, are, 12.5 is obviously more double than the bogeys. Seamus Power, Ben Martin at 6. Then you had 10.5 birdies for KH Lee, 5 in bogeys. So what I'm getting at here, the emphasis is definitely going to be on birdies gained, and certainly probably birdies gained on easy courses. That's something that I've been really looking at today. And with the propensity for eagles as well, and I'll show you in the course breakdown here, the scorecard, all 4 par 5s here at TPC Craig Ranch yield an eagle at a pretty good rate. The 16th easiest, the par 5 5th, is actually the most eagleable hole. Eagles at a little over 4%. The easiest hole, the closing 18th, 3%. Those are pretty high by PGA Tour standards. And then 2.5 on each of the other par 5s. So lots of eagles to be had out here too. Even the drivable par 4 14th. It does measure to 330, but it is drivable. It yields an eagle at above 1%. So, it's not uncommon to see quite a few eagles. So I'm definitely going to be looking at birdies or better, and probably on easy courses. I brought this leaderboard up from last year just to emphasize the fact that we're going to be looking at birdies. So we come back to Fantasy National. So let's start looking at birdies or better, opportunities, and so on here for the field this week. I'm gonna narrow this in again. Actually, let's start with the PGA Tour season. Let's see how many easy rounds there have been. Easy, there it is. Come on, fantasy. Yeah, plenty. 27. So let's take a look at a couple of different things here. First off, let's just look at opportunities gained. And opportunity gained, I'm going to have to bring up the glossary so I don't butcher this for you all, because I know about what it is, but it's the wording that I want to make sure I get right for you all. Opportunity gained is a birdie opportunity inside 15 feet from the green or fringe, plus greens or fringes under regulation. So a green or fringe under regulation within 15 feet counts as 2 opportunities. So hopefully that makes sense for you all. I can go through it a little bit slower, or try to give a diagram if I need to, but hopefully the wording makes sense for you all. That is what an opportunity gained is. So your top opportunities gained players, or the players that give themselves the most opportunities on easy or in easy rounds since the start of the PGA Tour season, going back to the Fortinet in September. Those players are Justin Thomas, Taylor Gooch, Adam Svensson, Austin Smotherman, Ryan Palmer, Emiliano Grillo, Scotty Scheffler, Sam Burns, Hideki, and Hudson Swafford. Do remember Nick Hardy has withdrawn, so Luke Donald would be 11th. So on Doug Gim has withdrawn, so he is not tied for 13th. But there's your top 10 players, and I'm not going to resort this, but the players that are top 10 in both in opportunities gained and in birdies or better on easy courses. Justin Thomas is first in opportunities gained and first in birdies or better. Not sure you can do much better than that. Taylor Gooch is second in opportunities, 10th in birdies or better. Scheffler, 7th and 7th. Burns is 8th and 2nd. So, all right, good stuff here. Ryan Palmer, 5th in opportunities, 19th in birdies or better. So he's converting his at a decent clip there as well. The guys that aren't converting or giving themselves birdies or better, Adam Svensson, Austin Smotherman, these guys are second in giving themselves opportunities, but are only cashing. I mean, they're cashing them in, negative relative to the field. So that can be concerning, or that can be a moment to jump on them. If they start converting their opportunities, that potentially presents a lot of value for you, especially in DFS. So something to keep an eye on there. Let's see. If we want to look at birdies or better instead on long courses, let's go ahead and do that as well. So birdies or better on long courses, there are quite a few less rounds, but always worth looking at as well. So your top opportunities gained players on long courses since the start of the PGA Tour season. Those players are Will Zalatoris, Taylor Gooch, Brandt Snedeker, John Huh, Joaquin Niemann, Justin Thomas, Henrik Norlander, Aaron Wise, Lonto Griffin, Aaron Ryan, DJ. So a little bit of overlap here. Justin Thomas, obviously first on easy, now 6th on long courses. I believe Taylor Gooch was on the long courses. On easy. Let's see here. Lashley was close to top 10 in both. Grillo was top 10 on easy, inside the top 20 on long courses. And then the players that are top 10 in both opportunities and birdies or better on long courses, those players are Will Zalatoris, first in opportunities, 6th in birdies or better. Justin Thomas is 6th in opportunities, 4th in birdies or better. Lonto Griffin, 9th and 9th. I guess a little bit of honorable mention here. DJ, 10th opportunities, 15th in birdies or better. Maverick McNeely, 13th and 8th. Charles Howe III, 13th and 10th. Okay. One more here. Henrik Stenson. There's a name for you. Henrik Stenson, 20th in opportunities, 10th in birdies or better. Let's see. Highlight some more names for you all. On long courses, Taylor Gooch, Brandt Snedeker, Henrik Norlander, Aaron Wise. These players are giving themselves lots of opportunities. They have not been cashing them in. They are negative relative to the field in terms of birdies or better. So again, same concept applies here. Perhaps a troubling statistic or an opportunity to pounce on some potential value. Okay, so that will probably do it for the birdies or bogeys tab. Again, just to sum it up, I don't know how I'm going to split it in the data dive or the mixed condition model, but I'm definitely going to be having birdies or better Probably on easy. Maybe birdies are better on long courses. I'm going to want to do some opportunities gained as well. It all kind of depends on how much percentage I have going around, but I'm definitely going to be looking at birdies or better. Let's move to the next tab here, fairways and greens, and we'll come back here to last year's leaderboard. Fairways and greens. So this is why last night I was pretty darn confident and trying to convince you all that even though this is a long course and the average driving distance is much higher here than the normal or average tour event, I don't think distance is going to be that big of a factor. Your leader was negative in relation to the field, and again, just because it's convenient, I'll highlight the top 20. You had 8 players of the top 20 that were negative in relation to the field in distance. So I just don't see it being a humongous factor. Now, it certainly could help you. Vegas, top 10. But these other top performers in driving distance last year, D. Shaman, Cameron Champ, clunkers of a made cut, John Rahm, middling finish, Wesley Bryan, top 30. Now Schwartzel did podium, Wyndham Clark middling finish, Stallings podium finish. It's just inconsistent. It doesn't look like it's a direct correlation between driving distance and a high leaderboard finish. So I just don't see driving distance being a factor. The one thing that I do think is going to be a major factor, I highlighted this last night, and I also put it on social media as part of a question based around, it's a statement put into the form of a question. Did you know that the top 20 of the 2021 AT&T Byron Nelson, all of them 100% were positive in good drives gained? That was essentially the question I posed on Twitter today. So that is, I don't know how else to, when you have 100% of something, generally means it's pretty darn consistent. So granted, this is just 1 year, but some of these numbers are pretty high too. I mean, you have Bramlett here is at 0.3, but he's, oh no, that's Lee Westwood, and he's 21st. So Bramlett's the only one that is barely above field average. Everybody else is 1.3 or higher. So these are some pretty big numbers. And if we sort on the good drives gained, there's a pretty good strong correlation here. Top 10, top 20, third, second, top 15, top 20. You do have a clunker of a made cut from Bo Hogue, and then top 5, top 10, top 20, a couple more middling finishes. So a lot of strong correlation here in good drives gained. So I think that is going to be the statistic of this tab that I'm going to focus on. With that being said, let's move over to this year's field. We're going to just look at good drives gained. I'm not sure if I want to put any filter on this. I can see an argument for putting good drives gained on long courses, good drives gained on easy courses, and I can see an argument not to. So jump in chat. Do you want to see all three? Do you want to keep it at a base level? What do you all think? Because I am, quite honestly, I'm kind of torn. Thinking about it as if I were going to make my final mixed condition model, if I would put any additional filters on this. I guess it wouldn't hurt to look at all of them. I'm just trying to think what would be the most logical, because this course is easy, this course is long, but if you put too many filters combined into one statistic, you're going to get a very, very, very narrow set of data. For example, I'll add both filters. This is just from the PGA Tour season. I mean, you get 4 rounds. You don't want to put, you don't want to restrict your data to the point where nothing qualifies. So I guess we'll take a look at easy first. So good drives gained on easy courses since the start of the PGA Tour season. Those players are Hayden Buckley, Ches Reavie, Adam Hadwin, Tyler Duncan, Martin Laird, Taylor Gooch, Henrik Norlander, James Hahn, Lee Hodges, and C.T. Pan. Some more overlap here. Now, Norlander is in good drives, and he was on birdies on easy? Or was he on long? I can't remember. I know Norlander has been there, Gooch has been there, but I think this is the first time for all these other players. I know this is the first time for Hayden Buckley, but he is number one in good drives gained. Ches Reavie is the first time we've mentioned him tonight. Adam Hadwin's there for putting on bent. He's just a good putter in general. So putting and good drives, which, by the way, good drives defined by Fantasy National is a drive that either one hits the fairway or two, the player still hits the green or fringe. I know it's at least the green, maybe it is the fringe in regulation. So that's what is defined as a good drive. So yeah, there is the top 10 good drives gained for rounds that are easy to par. We'll go to now the long course filter. Take off the easy. Now we move to long courses. Your top good drives gained players on long courses since the start of the PGA Tour season. You have Martin Laird, Tom Hoge, Brian Stewart, Henrik Norlander, Nate Lashley, Aaron Rai, Mito Pereira, Johnny Vegas, Brandon Grace, and DJ. So interesting to see Henrik Norlander on both good drives gained easy and good drives gained long course. Lashley's been up there a couple times now. This is the first time we've said Tom Hoge. I believe it's the first time we've said Martin Laird. Aaron Rai was up there once. No surprise to see anything with driver off the tee type stuff. Johnny Vegas up there. DJ. So, all right, good stuff here. I believe that's probably going to be all that I look at on this tab, but I'm very confident I'm going to use good drives gained in some capacity, whether that is on easy courses, whether that's on long courses, maybe even just flat out good drives gained. I haven't really made a definitive decision yet, but I'm definitely going to use this metric in some way in the final mixed condition model. Let's move to proximity. And anyone who has followed me for any amount of time knows that I'm very transparent about this. As a statistical analyst, proximity is the hardest thing for me to dissect. For example, in the course breakdown, this approach shot distribution chart, it's 34.5% of the approach shots last year at TPC Craig Ranch came from 200 plus yards. So you would think that would be a slam dunk, automatic, that is something that you want to look at. And graphically, that's what it says. However, again, just because my background, I'm looking at this, and there are some decent numbers here in the Prox 200 plus, but you've got some pretty high negatives when your winner was negative in proximity 200 plus. You got a minus 140, minus 173, minus 237. So again, I'll highlight the top 20. Your proximity from 200 plus, of the top 20, 4, 6, 8 were negative at 200 plus approach shots. That doesn't scream that it's all that important to me. The same thing, like total proximity. You've got 5 of the top 20 that were negative. So to me, it would say total proximity would be more important, especially due to the high numbers here in the total prox. But nothing here screams mandatory must look at. But just because there is a propensity of the amount of approach shots that come from here, I think it's prudent that we do. So this is a long-winded way of me just being transparent with you that this is the one statistic that I struggle with in evaluating golf. So I don't want you all to think I'm lying to you all, or I would rather just be honest and tell you that I don't know than to feed you bullshit. It's just the way I am. So again, we'll look at 200 plus, but this is the reason why I don't feel like it's going to be, or the data says it's not a big deal, just because of these high negatives. But because of the chart in Fantasy National, we're going to look at 200 plus first on easy courses since the start of the PGA Tour season. So your best players on approach shots coming from 200 yards or longer since the start of the PGA Tour season. Mr. Kick Me in the Nuts is number one. Maverick McNeely. Joo Hyung Kim is a newer player to the tour. I know he's big in Korea. He played the CJ Cup. He's been over here in PGA Tour events before, but he's mainly an Asian Tour player. But he's fairly highly ranked in the OWGR. I do know that, but I don't know much else about him. But anyway, so Joo Hyung Kim is third on approach shots coming from 200 yards or longer. David Skins, Joseph Bramlett, Joshua Creel, Patrick Rogers, Sam Burns, Keith Mitchell, Will Zalatoris, and Brandon Wu are the top 10 in approach shots coming from 200 yards or longer on easy or in easy rounds. So, okay. Let's see. Any of these things or any of these people stand out? Not really. Sam Burns, Will Zalatoris, Keith Mitchell make a whole lot of sense. Bramlett, McNeely, yeah, it just makes sense. If we look at 200 plus on long courses, which again, if I'm going to look at proximity 200 plus, it's probably just going to be individually or on easy. But if you want to look at 200 plus on long courses, there's not that much data, but your top performers on approach shots coming from 200 plus yards since the start of the PGA Tour season on long courses: Brant Snedeker, Tom Hoagie, Will Zalatoris, Aaron Rai, Scotty Scheffler, DJ, Tyler Duncan, Cam Champ, Doug Ghim, and Hideki. Again, I just don't see much, too much value here. I'm showing it just to show you if you're interested. I'm going to be more focused on the easy approaches, or 200 plus proximity on easy courses, or just flat out no filter. So I don't think we actually did with no filter. So since the start of the PGA Tour season, on approach shots from 200 plus yards or longer with no other filters, just simple, your best performers on approach shots from 200 plus yards or 200 yards or longer. Those players are Will Zalatoris, Hideki, Kurt Kitayama, Austin Smotherman, Sebastian Munoz, Aaron Rai, DJ, Adam Hadwin, Adam Scott, Tyler Duncan, and Keith Mitchell. So some overlap here, especially from the easy and the long. Let's see. DJ, Keith Mitchell, Taylor Gooch is right outside the top 10. Zalatoris makes a lot of sense. Yeah, okay. So that is what I'm going to be looking at proximity, 200 plus. If I do it all, I probably will, just because there's so many approach shots that come from there. But I don't feel great about it. I really don't. Yeah. So let's see. That'll be it for that tab. Let's go ahead and move into the par 3s and the 4s and the 5s. And we talked about this a little bit last night, in the sense that it felt like the par 3s were pretty darn important, only because you see here, third toughest hole, the sixth toughest hole, the fifth toughest, and the seventh toughest. So all four par 3s are inside the top 7 in terms of difficulty on this course. It's where the length of this course comes in. You do have the very short 17th, very tough, or at least tough in relation to the rest of the holes here at TPC Craig Ranch. It still plays to right about par. But the other par 3s, 216 yards, 232 yards, 219 yards. These are long, difficult par 3s. So we can see that from last year's leaderboard here. Your best performers in strokes gained par 3, I mean, top 5, top 30, winner, top 5, top 5, top 5, top 15, top 15, top 25. That's pretty strong up there at the top. And then if you sort by just the leaderboard, you do have a couple of players here in the top 20 that were negative, but not many, and not by much. Let's see, Zalatoris. Stay highlighted. Thank you. You have 4 players that were negative in relation to the field on par 3s, the highest being Joseph Bramlett at 1.7. So fairly important, I would say. If there is a length of par 3, it looked to be the 175 to 200, even though more of the par 3s fall in between 200 to 225. Let's see, 2.3 the highest there, 2.1 here. Yeah, okay, maybe it is the 200 to 225. It's roughly the same. So I think it's just par 3. That's what I'm going to be focusing on, is just strokes gained par 3. So instead of adding any easy or long course or whatnot, just going to look straight up strokes gained par 3. So since the start of the PGA Tour season, your top performers on par 3s are Brian Stewart, Tom Hoagie, Sepp Straka, Will Zalatoris, Brendan Todd, Adam Hadwin, Taylor Gooch, Scott Stallings, Jason Kokrak, and Aaron Wise. So Taylor Gooch has been jumping or popping on these filters quite a bit. Hadwin has popped quite a bit on these filters. Will Zalatoris. Hoagie now has popped a couple of times. Okay. All right, so there's the par 3s. Par 4s here are actually pretty mitigated in terms of importance. If there was a range of par 4s, I felt like it was the 400 to 450, even though most of the par 4s fall into this bucket here. So you see here, I mean, the par 4s were fairly important, sure. Only one player was negative in par 4s. But when we look at, when we go to the Microsoft Excel portion, you will see how mitigated the par 4s are here in terms of other courses, at least full field event courses. So strokes gained par 4, I felt like it was 400 to 450. You got a 4.8 as the highest in the 400 to 450. You do have a 4 here. So the most strokes gained was in the 400 to 450. Let's see. You had about the same amount of players negative in both. So you had 4 in 400 to 450 and 3 from 450 to 500, but they were higher. So let's take a quick look at the scorecard. So you got 431, 466, 482 is not going to fall in there. Okay, so here's one that might fall into the 400 to 450 and come down one, 457. That's really about the only one. So you have 5 from 450 to 500. So it could be 4 and 3, maybe. But at least on the scorecard, it says that the 450 to 500 should be the most important. Now let's take I'm trying to take an eyeball look here. And honestly, they're about the same. If anything, I would say it's the 400 to 450 just because of all these 4s here where you only have, well, you have about the same. I don't know. Let's take a look at both. Let's just take a look at both. So, your top performers on par 4s from 400 to 450 yards since the start of the tour season. Those players are Brian Harmon, Nick Watney, Sepp Straka, Adam Scott, Justin Thomas, Mito Pereira, Xander, Kevin Kisner, Scotty Scheffler, Charles Howell III, and Pat Gazire. And looking at the 450 to 500, players that are top 10 in both are Justin Thomas, 5th from 400 to 450, 4th from 450 to 500. Mito, 5th and 1st. You got Scotty Scheffler, 9th and 10th. I'll give an honorable mention to Brian Harman, 1st in 400 to 450, 14th in 450 to 500. Seamus Power deserves the same honorable mention then. 15th from 400 to 450, 2nd in 450 to 500. So I'm not sure if I'm going to focus on any par 4s, to be honest with you. And I'll explain why once we get to Microsoft Excel. If I were to, it would be in one of these two lengths. But I don't feel great about it, so I don't think I'm going to, actually. And then finally, let's go to the par 5s. It was consistently the most important strokes gained by hole by par here at TPC Craig Ranch. We saw the amount of eagles. You saw the amount of birdies. You just have to pick up strokes here on par 5s. If you make a par on a par 5, you're losing shots to the field a lot. You can see, I mean, look at the correlation here. 2nd, 3rd, top 20, middling to clunker, top 25, top 5, middling, winner, top 10, top 10, top 10, top 20, top 25. I mean, you have to come down here to what, maybe the 20th highest player in strokes gained par 5 before you find a missed cut. Just extremely important here at TVC Craig Ranch. If there is a range, 500, 550 has 5.5. This is 4.4. Maybe it's the 500 to 550. Let's see. Yeah, it would be the 500 to 550. Again, highlighting the top 20 here. You have two players that were negative in terms of the field in relation to the field from 500 to 550. Only two, where you have, let's see, 1, 2. It says 6, but these are probably minuscule in the negative. I don't know. We'll take a look at both, but I'm more leaning towards 500 to 550. Definitely going to be looking at total strokes gained par 5. So, of the players in the field this week, your top performers on par 5s since the start of the PGA Tour season: Scotty Scheffler, Johnny Vegas, Maverick McNeely, Justin Thomas, Matthias Schwab, Tommy Fleetwood, Taylor Gooch, Sam Burns, JJ Spawn, and Sam Ryder. And if we come across here, some of the players that are top 10 in 2 or all 3, you've got Scotty Scheffler is 1st in all of par 5s, 1st in 550 to 600. Top 10 in all 3, Johnny Vegas, 2nd, 7th, and 2nd. Maverick McNeely, the same, 3rd, 3rd, and 10th. Justin Thomas is 4th in total par 5s, 4th from 550 to 600. Matthias Schwab's 5th in total, 2nd from 500 to 550. Fleetwood is top 10 in 2 of them. Taylor Gooch is top 10 in 2 of them. Sam Burns is top 3 in all. He's only top 10 in 2 of them. JJ Spawn's top 10 in 2 of them. Okay. So here's a look at the par 5s for the field. That's going to do it for the Fantasy National portion, unless somebody has a quick question to jump in and chat. I don't like going from Fantasy National to Excel and back just because of the software that I use. It kind of takes a lot of clicks, and you can hear it in the background and all that stuff. So if somebody has a quick question for Fantasy National, I'll be more than happy to answer it or look something up real quick. But otherwise, I'm going to start getting prepared for the Microsoft Excel portion of the show. I'm going to set this back to the pure strokes gained view here. Something else that I kind of wanted to look at, especially for the putting, I did bring up the Wells Fargo leaderboard, in particular in strokes gained putting, just to see who putt well last week, and maybe that carries over. So players that we know are in the field this week, Lanto Griffin, he putt well. Let's just sort on putting, actually. James Hahn, I believe, is in the field this week. Troy Merritt, I think, is. Occasionally, obviously, your defending champion, he putt very well last week on bent greens. Let's see. Schwab is. I think Lahiri is this week. Seamus Power is, I know. Johnny Vegas is. Mackenzie Hughes is. Shank is. Smotherman is. He's in. Okay. So there's a quick look at the guys who putt well last week at TBC Potomac in the torrential downpour that was the Wells Fargo. Wanted to make sure I had that up. But let's go ahead and move to Microsoft Excel. Let me bring up that real quick. Vision's going to be skewed until I switch it. Don't mind me as I talk to myself, bring up chat again. Okay, so we kind of ended off last night's show with this. This is the kind of the course data summary is what I call it. So you see here, the Byron Nelson, you have 1.02 for the top 30 players. That was their average in strokes gained off the tee. Whereas the average full field course is a 1.25 in off the tee. So that means that the off the tee here at the Byron Nelson is about a quarter of a shot less important. I did that here, and I showed this view of it to hopefully help you all out and see where I'm getting these, negative 0.23 or quarter shot and half shots and all that stuff. So Byron Nelson, quarter of a shot less important on off the tee. Approaches, a quarter of a shot more important. Putting was 0.3 more important than the average full field tour course. We scroll over. Again, this is why I don't think distance is going to be a big factor. This is in combination with places like RBC Heritage, that's a forced layup course, or a club down course, Pebble Beach. Places like that is included in this data, and the Byron Nelson is still negative or less important in distance than the average tour event. So I just don't think distance is going to be a huge factor this week. We saw fairways gained, not all that important at all. Good drives, about average. It says something that the entire top 20 was positive last year at TBC Craig Ranch. So I feel like this is going to be a pretty important metric, even if it just says about average. We move to the eagles, the birdies, the bogeys, all that stuff. Eagles, surprisingly, at least surprisingly to me, is about average for the tour course, but the birdies is just no other way to say it. It's a shitload. 0.6 more important than the average tour course in birdies. So I'm definitely going to be focusing on birdies. I'll be focusing on opportunities gained. I'll definitely be putting some birdies or better in there. I won't be focusing on just birdies. I'll be doing birdies or better and opportunities more than likely. But this is why I am all about the birdies gained this week. Birdies are better on easy courses. It makes a lot of sense. Move over here, par threes. I think it's going to be a little bit more important than a 10th in the negative. KH Lee played them well. Your top 5 played the par threes pretty darn well. Here it says that the 200 to 225 is 0.2 more important. I'm just going to be focusing on par threes total. But when I was mentioning that the par fours were quite mitigated here, this is what I was referring to. Strokes gained par 4, 0.9 less important than the average tour event. The only one that's above the average tour event is the drivable par 4. I don't want to put a whole lot of stock or much stock of any into one hole. So I'm not sure how much weight I'm going to put in par fours, if any, this week. And I generally put quite a bit of weight into par fours. They just don't seem that important this week. But conversely, par fives, extremely important. 7/10 more important than the average tour event. And then the two ranges of par fives, both above the average tour event. It says 500 to 550 would be more important than the other. And that's what I felt like I saw from the numbers. But par fives, I think, will just suffice. That is what I have been referring to as in terms of importance and non-importance and such. I'm going to bring up a couple of spreadsheets that I've been working on today that kind of show you the masochist in me and what I'm trying to do in the research. So just to give you a bit of background, when I found the little statistic or nugget of information on Max Homa last week, I put it on Twitter that there was only one player that met this criteria, and I asked if you could guess it and all that stuff. That's why I put a wager on Max Homa. I had friends that put some significant wagers on Max Homa, all that stuff. So I was able to find that fairly easily with only 1 year of data for TPC Craig Ranch. It is difficult to find patterns. And even more so, KH Lee seems to be a very random winner last year. So let me bring up a couple of these things here. This is, I'm sorry, I got to slide it on over here for you. This is the players, and again, this is the top 20. It was just convenient for ties. This is the performance of each player in the top 20 last year in specific metrics, and the ones that I thought would be key this week. I even looked at putting. There's really no consistency. I mean, you see here, KH Lee had absolutely no form of putting coming in. Just to give a quick explanation, the leftmost column is the most recent. So this is the week or the tournament that the player played before the Byron Nelson. So Jordan Spieth, he played the Masters before, and he was off from the Masters to the Byron Nelson. So that's why this one's blank. Berger played the Masters, and he played another event between the Masters and the Byron Nelson. So this is most recent, all the way back to the start of the calendar year, 1/1/2021. But you see here, I mean, no putting form at all. And I tried to look at other, I looked at the top 20. Did they have putting form coming in? Some did, but, Joseph Bramlett, he didn't have any at all. Seamus Power, he didn't have really any at all. Johnny Vegas is not a good putter in general. So I didn't feel like it was putting. Maybe it's strokes gained approach. KH Lee had an event here where he gained 5, but he didn't really have a lot of approach form coming in. Some of these players didn't really at all either, like Troy Merritt. He never gained anything above 2. Let's see, Doc Redman. I mean, he gained 3.8 way back when, but his iron form was shaky at best. But then you had other players, Jordan Spieth, premier player in the world, sure. Charles Schwartzel had 2 very good approach weeks coming in. So the approach was pretty inconsistent. And I found that throughout all of the stats that I thought would be important. Sorry, you can't see the other 3. So putting, approach, good drives gained we talked about tonight. Birdies gained, we talked about that. I didn't see anything. I mean, KH Lee didn't have much of a form in birdies gained coming in. Was it par 3s? He had one good performance in par 3s, but some of these players didn't have any par 3 form at all, like Seamus Power. So there was a couple others like Harris English. Let's see, Luke Donald didn't really have much coming in, at least recently. So that one was kind of random. All of these just seemed kind of random. The one statistic that I thought was fairly consistent was this Prox 200. You had KH Lee had a 13.1 and an 8.9. Doesn't sound like a lot, but everybody else had at least two tournaments with a double-digit gain in proximity 200 plus. So I thought that was something that I could key in on. Schwartzel didn't. He had two that were very close to it, and they were the most recent, so I counted it kind of being a little bit liberal in the use there, or counting it, whatever, however you want to say that. But I mean, like Scott Stallings, 4 different tournaments with 200 or with double digits in the 200 plus. Spieth and Power did not qualify, but they also had tournaments that weren't registered. Spieth at the Masters, Seamus Power played both the Corrales and the Puerto Rico, so those proximities aren't measured. It is very viable that Seamus Power could have had another 8.4 or even higher. But I did mark them in red since I did really qualify. But what I'm getting at here is that all of these players had at least one double digit, except for Schwartzel, who had 2 very high ones back to back, so I counted that. And most of them had 2, if not 3, double digit 200 plus proximity tournaments leading in to the Byron Nelson last year. Well, I started to go through the field this week. I sorted it just by alphabetical. I got through the Bs. So I went, players like Adam Hadwin, Adam Shank, Austin Smotherman, Bill Hawes, players that their first name started with A and B. And I think I eliminated maybe 6 players. It seemed like that was a fairly common thing for the players in the field this week. So I wasn't sure how unique it was. And that's what has been tripping me up in terms of trying to find that particular nugget of information that I was trying to glean, for myself and for you all. I haven't found it yet, so I didn't want to come online and say that I don't have anything for you all. I've been trying. I don't see much. And then the other chart I'll just give you a quick look at. I've got some more color coding here. This is KH Lee's events coming into the Byron Nelson last year. Let's see. So he played, these events. I don't see a whole lot of consistency here. Off the tee, hit and miss, stroke gain approach, hit and miss. I mean, it was more positive than negative, but most players are. Around the green, but I don't know how much is around the green going to matter when we saw the charts that we did in Fantasy National. Good drives weren't great. Opportunities, not really. Birdies, not really. So this is what I'm again, another long-winded explanation of saying that I've got to do some more digging if I'm going to find that particular nugget for you all of, like I did for Max Homa last week. I am struggling to find it, but it's not for lack of trying. I eventually had to get up from the computer and and go outside just to take a break. I was getting frustrated, but by all means, guys, if you all have a question or want some explanation on what you've seen tonight, feel free to reach out to me. I'm always available, whether that's in the comments of the video, get at me on social media. I'm going to bring up let's see, what do I want to end for you all? I guess I'll show you all that one to end. See if you all can figure out a pattern of what you see here. So yeah, a couple of things that I have that I still have up in the air. I'm trying to find the the pattern here to find that little nugget of information for you all to maybe glean who the winner is going to be this week. I also need to check the wind, and we'll do that Wednesday night at the DFS Tactics show to prepare for all of our DFS lineups. A quick reminder that if you are a baseball fan or play in DFS baseball, I am starting or have started that content. I will be doing that every Friday and Saturday at 3 p.m. Eastern. So join me there. I've been having fun with it, preparing and then doing the 2 shows that I did last week. It was a good time. You can make fun of my fandom. We'll have some banter and chat. So if you're a baseball fan, add those 2 shows to your reminders. But I believe that's going to do it for tonight's show. Hopefully I gave you all some useful information to use in your research this week. Let me know in the comments as well. Do you have any wagers out there? Are you focusing in on anyone? Awaken mentioned that he's going on the DJ wedding narrative. Is there anybody that you're avoiding this week, DFS, wager-wise, or anything? So throw that in the comments as well. Thanks for tuning in. I always appreciate the support and you all taking the time to watch and listen. For any of the wagers that you have already made so far this week for the Byron Nelson, for any wagers that you're thinking about making this week at the Byron Nelson, and until I see you Wednesday night for the DFS Tactics Show, may all your bets be profitable.